What up, y'all? It's your boy James, and you're watching Watch Your Mouth Reviews, where I'm going to give a review by trying to watch my mouth. I'm probably not on this video because it is horror movie editions. I'm giving reviews of my favorite horror movies from least favorite to ultimate favorite throughout the month of October. If you're new to my channel's brand new. Welcome, we're starting together. If you're returning back and you've watched my other videos before, welcome back. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, especially if you like what you see. Today, we're going to be doing a movie review on the movie Valentine. This movie stars Denise Richards, David Boreanaz, Jessica Capshaw, Marley Shelton, and Katherine Heigl. Big actors today, like they all have really made a staple, but this movie was done in the early 2000s, like maybe even late 90s. So this movie starts off with this sixth grade dance, and it's a Valentine's Day dance. We see this kind of nerdy character who is Jeremy. Now, Jeremy in his yearbook kind of has who he likes, who he hates, pretty sure kids who gave him a hard time, but he seeks out these 5 women particularly. So he asked the first girl, who is Shelly, that's played by Katherine Heigl, to dance, and she says no. Then he moves it on over to Lily, who is Jessica Caulfield, the actress, and asks her to dance, and she's like, ew. He then goes over to Paige, who is played by Denise Richards, and she goes, I'd rather be boiled alive. I said, damn, that's cold. He goes over to Kate, who's played by Marley Shelton, and Kate was like, maybe later, Jeremy. And then he kind of got happy about that, and then he goes over to Dorothy. Dorothy is played by Jessica Capshaw, and Dorothy at first wanted to say no. She just kind of rolled her eyes and looked up and was like, oh my God, really? Why him out of all people? But then she gives his hand, and he smiles, kind of like, yeah, she didn't blow me off. So they went under the bleachers and started making out. All of a sudden, these other guys come up to the bleachers and kind of peek in on them, and they call him the pervert, and they call Dorothy the buffalo, because Dorothy was a little bit more of the heavier set side. So Dorothy was out of fear of being judged. She does what pretty much any kid does when they're about to be bullied. They throw the other person under the bus, so it saves them. Which kids, if you are watching, should be no kids watching anyway, but if there happens to be some kids whose parents don't have parental control, if you're in a situation where you and someone else is going to get bullied, just join them. Don't throw them out to fend for themselves, because you never know how strong a person could be, or what way end up in that situation. So they started attacking him, started taking off his clothes. All the kids were surrounded. Not one adult intervened. It was very like, where are the chaperones in this situation? Why haven't y'all came and saw about this kid? And his nose starts bleeding. I guess that's he gets nosebleeds when he's anxious or, nervous or something. It's kind of I've seen that before, where people get like nervous reactions and, nose starts to bleed. It's I forgot what that disorder is called. If you know, put it in the comments, because I do know what it is. I just can't think of it right now. So 13 years later comes up, and we go back to Shelly, who is Katherine Heigl once again. Shelly is on the date with this guy who is Jason Marquette in the movie. I don't know what his real name is in real life, because I have never seen him outside of this movie. But he starts referring to himself in third person the entire time, and she kind of was like, oh my gosh, she even wrote, help me with the dressing of her salad. She was not trying to be in this date. She was one of those ones where she's like, oh my God, let it in, let it in. So she goes, there's the check. Waitress, can you get the check? Oh, and she goes, make sure Valley goes and gets my car, please. Thank you. And so they end the night. She goes, well, it was nice meeting you. And he goes, don't I get a kiss? And she goes, for what? And he goes, well, come on, it's just a small freaking kiss. She's like, oh my God. And then he starts referring to himself in third person again. And she goes, I'm not a doctor yet, but it's my opinion that you go seek professional help. And I would agree. Jason was pretty weird. Even when she left, he looked at another lady at the bar and goes, Jason likes your dress. And it was like, oh yeah, you crazy. You the first person on my list of who I think this killer is, sir. So Shelly ended up having to do, I think, a midterm or something like that. So she went back to school to kind of do her homework and do more research. So she's in the lab and she has her corpse that's right there where she's about to do an incision on. She hears a noise coming from the locker room, so she goes to investigate the noise in the locker room. And I'm gonna tell y'all, in this situation, it is dark as hell. You cannot see anything. There aren't any lights, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? What kind of school ain't got no lights at night? Y'all help me to believe what this situation is, because I was like, Shelly, you crazy. I done came back in the morning and, just had to do it, right then and there. But she ends up seeing this guy. We don't know who he is. I'm assuming he's another med student at the school. Scares the hell out of her. And he goes, are you sure you're going to be okay here by yourself? And she goes, yeah, I'm good. And when the guy leaves, she noticed on her locker, she had a card. And when she opens it, she realizes it's a Valentine's card. And it was very weird. It kind of had like this imprint of a vampire. And she was like, okay, that's creepy. And then it stabs in the card. When you pull it, it stabbed at her neck. So it was like, what the hell's going on here? Why is this happening? So she ends up blowing it off, thinking and I think she thought it was that guy who gave her that Valentine. But she ends up going back into the lab, and she goes back to normal. And when she puts on her gloves and puts the scalpel towards the stomach, the corpse begins breathing, and she freaks out like anybody would have, because this is beyond the time of reflexes. Rigor mortis done kicked in and everything. You shouldn't be moving at all. So when she backs up into the wall, in the storage closet, it has a small window where the corpse puts his face, like it kind of, I guess, falls from her bumping it. So she realizes that that's her corpse, and when she turns back to the operating table, that body is gone. So she freaks out. She doesn't know what to do at this point. And she grabs a scalpel, and then from the curtain behind her, the killer grabs her. So she stabs at the corpse, and then she begins running. Now, what was interesting about this, and I never noticed this until I rewatched this movie recently today, she had the scalpel in her hand the entire time. Why she didn't continue to stab him, I don't know. So the killer ends up chasing her. She ends up running inside the morgue and where more bodies are. And there isn't another way out. So what she ends up doing is she ends up going and hiding in one of the body bags. I'm just trying to figure out, what sense did that make? Why would you go and hide in a body bag and put yourself in a position to where if he were to open it, which the killer did, you couldn't have gotten out. You couldn't have shaken it loose because he held your ass down and literally sliced your neck. And that's how she died. Stupid. I would have never done that. I would have, if I was going to go in that room, I would have gotten behind one of the operating tables because they were all portable. Like, you would be able to push it. As soon as he wanted, just push that thing and, attack him with it and push him in the door. And he would have had to either move out the way or get hit with it. Easy. You would have probably had a better chance of surviving versus doing what you did, which is hide the body bag. Shelly, you should have done better, baby. Moving on. So now we move on to Paige and Kate. So apparently the 5 girls who Jeremy Melton in the beginning was going up against, they were separated from each other at the dance. They weren't really, I guess they weren't friends. So now, 13 years later, they're all friends now. That's very interesting to me. But Paige and Kate meet up and they're going speed dating. Kate just kind of separated herself from her boyfriend. They haven't quite broken up yet. They're kind of still trying to figure out what's going on. But Paige is hot in the ass. Paige ready to date. Paige ready to have sex. Paige ready to get it on. Paige is living her best 20s life, and I ain't mad at her at all. That's what you're supposed to do in your 20s. You ain't supposed to be just tied down to one person that whole decade of your life, and then when you get to your 30s, you're trying to figure out where the hell all that time went. It's because you was out there giving all your time away to somebody else and lost it. Point blank period. I wasn't mad at Paige at all. I said, yes, Paige, you was an inspiration. I'm past 20, but I'm past my 20s. But if I could relive my 20s again, you was exactly what I would want to be in my 20s instead of trying to find somebody. So they began doing the speed dating, and some of the guys were creepy. Some of the guys didn't say anything. Some of them said too much, and it was like, oh yeah. Kate the whole time was drinking on her beer and was like, "Get me the hell out of here, Paige." Like, why the hell? So finally, the last guy shows up, and his name was Brian. Now, Kate was kind of feeling Brian. She was like, okay, because he was saying all the right things. He's like, I bet you want to get up out of here. And she says, you absolutely right. Paige comes over because I guess she didn't like to do she got in her 30 seconds. So she's like, hi, I'm Paige. Did I mention my friend was in a serious relationship? But I'm free. And I said, no, you didn't. See, how you going to encourage her to go out with you, but then you going to go around and take the man that she actually could have been interested in? Paige, you ain't no good. I see you. But I guess Paige said, hey, I need to try it for myself. So, oh, well, get up out my way. So they leave the place and they get a call from Dorothy. Now, Dorothy, we didn't hear Dorothy's voice over the phone, but Kate's demeanor changed and she goes, what's wrong? What happened? And then she says, oh my God. And then we panel to a funeral, which is Shelly's funeral. They had a Shelly's funeral literally the next day because it was like no time had went by where, you know, we're trying to figure out what happened to Shelly. So Shelly, so as they're in the funeral, Kate sees, I'm trying to think of what David Boreanaz's name is in the movie because it just slipped my mind. What is David Boreanaz? Because I don't want to call him David. And I sure don't want to call him Angel because that's what I really know him as. But her boyfriend, which I'll remember his name in a minute, but he's this alcoholic, and that's the reason why they're breaking up. She kind of can't handle him when he drinks. So when she walks into his car, she sees a bottle of tequila in the car, and he goes, "Oh, that's for a coworker. You remember him?" Because apparently they work for the same newspaper. So she pretty much dismisses it, and he drives off. And then Dorothy comes and links arms with her, and she goes, "He looks good." And Dorothy's like, "He always looks good." And then the other two girls, which are Lily and Paige, they come over to Dorothy and Kate. And, Paige was, talking. She goes, "So what'd he say?" Or what's going on? And Dorothy kind of gave her a look like, "Girl, not now, this ain't the time. She going through this." And when Paige was taking off her jacket, she had all her breasts all on display. And Lily was like, "We are at a funeral." And she tells her to lift that shirt up because her breasts weren't all the way out, but it was kind of inappropriate. So after a while, the police, are asking people questions, and the girls are talking about that. She goes, "Have you heard about the police asking questions?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's awful." And they're still kind of in that, grievance phase where they can't believe she's gone because when the cop comes over, they were in the middle of a conversation and he asked, "When was the last time you guys talked to Shelly?" And Kate said it was about a year for me, and Paige and Lily were like, make it 2 because she was busy with med school and everything. And so he goes, "Have you ever heard of a Jason Marquette?" And Kate was like, "Who's that?" And apparently he was the guy that Shelly was out with the night that she died. So right now they're kind of looking at each other like, okay, was he the one who did it? Or are you asking if we know why he would do it? They didn't have much dialogue with this scene, and this wasn't the first time the cop has asked them these repeated questions. So we'll get back to that. So he goes, "If you guys can think of anything else, here's my card." And he gives it directly to Paige. Now, Paige being Denise Richards, she always had these beautiful eyes and they were seductive. So she kind of played that trick. If you ever watch Wild Things, she did it in that movie too. It was kind of one of those things where she does these things with her eyes and it's kind of seductive. I saw what he was seeing, and so he gave her a card and he drives off. So we go over to Dorothy's house. Now, Dorothy came from money. Dorothy came from lots of money because that house was beautiful. It was huge. She walks in, we see this old man and this young Asian girl running up the stairs, and she's giggling. And Dorothy opens a card similar to what Shelley had. And it said, roses are red, violets are blue. They'll need dental records to identify you. And I said, that is fucked up. Whoever sent that card. Damn, y'all really was trying to make it horrible. So she looks at this maid, and this maid, let me explain something to you, maid. You chose this job. You chose to work here. So the fact that you are rolling your eyes, being miserable, and her name was Millie, go figure, miserable Millie is what we gonna call her throughout this entire movie. She was just like a horrible example of what I would not want when I come into this kind of money. So the doorbell rings, and Millie looked at Dorothy like, you ain't gonna answer your door? So Dorothy answers the door, and we see that it's Campbell. Now, Campbell is played by David Cosgrove, he's a soap actor, another big actor. He definitely has built his career up over time as well after this movie. And Campbell is a crook. If I ain't never seen a crook a day in my life, he is the definition of a crook, playing with, because we could tell Dorothy is insecure. Like, Dorothy kind of wears that. She's a beautiful girl, but wears insecurity all throughout herself. So he kind of tells her he's having a little bit of money problems. He invested his money into some software program. His roommate didn't pay his half of the rent, and he's stuck. So Dorothy was all like, Millie, miserable Millie, can you make up a guest room? And then she said, did your father say? Because he the one that write me my check. Ma'am, did he say? And she goes, no, I said. And so Millie just rolled her eyes and just went to the guest room. And she goes, go get yourself settled in and I'll be right there. And she smiles. And then the stepmom, I'm assuming this is stepmom, this girl can't be older than 21, walks down these stairs and she goes, who's your friend? And it was like, ma'am, you are married to her daddy. What the hell are you talking about? Who's your friend? Like, and she goes, he's off limits, okay? Can you tell my daddy staying here? And she goes, oh, is he the reason you've been up in the gym? And it was like, oh, see, what you're not gonna do is you're not gonna play with me right now. Because the space and opportunity up in this foyer, we can get it popping up in here. And she goes, don't be talking about my sex life. And she goes, and the stepmom goes, you have a sex life? And she goes, I do, and I don't charge by the hour like you. And that was like, yeah, get her ass. That was a good breed. And she goes, and she grabs Dorothy, and Dorothy said, get your hands off me, you milk order bride from hell. And she starts speaking in her native language, whatever that language was. And the dad comes down, he goes, what's going on here? And she goes, and the stepmom goes, she just called me a mail order bride from hell. He goes, Dorothy. And she goes, well, I don't know what the fuck she just called me. And he goes, and he tells his wife, I'm gonna take care of it. You need to show some more respect to my wife. And I said, oh, see, Dorothy the right kind of person. Because as soon as she turned her head, I said, I'll be like, bitch, I'm gonna get your ass. You just wait, I'm gonna get your ass. Don't look, I'm gonna snap and I'm gonna pop you, just like Chris Tucker said in Money Talk. Shout out to Chris Tucker. I'm gonna snap a pop. You better watch your back, watch your goddamn back, even in the shower, even in picnics, at the damn kitchen table. Watch your goddamn back, because I'm gonna get your ass. I would have told her that. Point blank period. Because I could tell that she does that all the time. I could tell by the way Dorothy was looking that happens all the time. And it's like, oh, yeah, that stepmom was something else. So then we go back to Kate's apartment. Kate is in the shower because, you know, she's just getting back from the funeral as well. And she has to go back to work. And so she heard a noise. So she gets out the shower, looks around, and realizes there's nobody there. So then she tries to go and turn back on her shower, and the water doesn't cut back on. Now, I'd have been mad as hell. And I would have been like, oh, no. I would have withheld my rent for that day. I would have, because it's like, I don't ask for this. And you could tell that apartment was old and raggedy as hell. So, you know, That's kind of what you get when you move into cold raggedy ass apartments and the plumbing gets backed up. Cause that's an inconvenience. So she still got conditioner in her hair. And she's calling a super. He ain't answering the phone. And so this is where it gets interesting. She sticks her head in the damn toilet and rinses the conditioner out. And I said, "Ooh, that's problematic. Like, why would you? No, we're not doing that." So then when she answers, she gets another phone call. She thinks it's the superintendent, and she answers and there's nobody there. And then she realizes her door is open. So she walks out the door and goes to the elevator because something seems to be holding it up. And when she looks down, she realizes it's a cherub mask, like the Cupid mask. So she picks it up, and then her creepy ass neighbor, who has to rhyme with her name every sentence, or has to say her name with a rhyme. He goes, "Hello, Kate." He goes, "You look great, Kate. How about a date, Kate? You could be my mate, Kate." And she turned the tables and did the same thing. She goes, "You're scary, Larry." He goes, "It could be our fate, Kate." And I was all like, "Oh, yeah." So now we pan over to Lily and Paige. Apparently they live together, or Paige is a freeloader because she kind of goes in everybody's house at some point and was up in their refrigerator and shit. I'm like, "Paige, don't let me realize you going from pillow to post now. We not finna do this. I hope you and Lily is roommates." So she goes over to Lily and she's pouring, and Lily's looking at some kind of dating. I guess this was before cell phones and apps and everything. You had to sit in an actual VHS of yourself if you wanted to date in this city. So Lily's like looking at this man. His name is Lance. He's saying he's 6 footish, and I think they said 6 footish means he's 5'4" with loafers, whatever the fuck that means. And so she tells him better luck next time because she wasn't interested, because he starts talking about board games and she got bored. So the doorbell rings and she goes to the door and she goes, "There's no one there." And Paige goes, "It's probably Lance. He doesn't clear the peephole." And so they start laughing. And so when she opens the door, she sees that there are a heart-shaped box of chocolates and another card similar to what Dorothy and Shelley got. So her card said, "'Tis a well-known fact that beauty is skin deep. Savor the taste. You are what you eat." Now, I'm not the smartest person in the world, and I don't pretend that I will be. But when I read a card that says that card and that heart-shaped box of chocolates would have went in the trash. But see, Lily wasn't thinking like that. Lily was all like, they were trying to figure out between the two of them who this belongs to, because it was signed JM, just like Shelley's and Dorothy's. And she goes, "Who's JM?" They're not putting two and two together because it's been some time. Lily goes, "It must be for you." And Paige was like, "Why is it me?" She goes, "Because you cover much more of the alphabet than I have." "Who's JM?" And Paige said, "Girl, get the fuck out of here. That's for you." She goes, "Okay, you say it's for me, it's for me." So she takes a bite of the chocolate and maggots were in the chocolate. And I said, "Ooh, I would have been mad. JM, go to hell, because I would have got your ass too." So she starts freaking out and shaking and everything. And it was absolutely crazy. So it ends up coming to this event where I guess it was Lily's boy. Yeah, it was Lily's boyfriend. His name was Max. Now, Max is this artist, and he's like a hypersexualized artist, or he likes lips and eyes and facial features. It's not that much out of the norm to me because I'm kind of into facial features too. But it was kind of like he kind of was obsessed because he had TV screens of the shit. But before they see the art, the girls are introduced to him. Well, at least Kate is, because I think Kate is the only person who has not met him yet. So Lily introduces him to Kate, and he's definitely into Kate. He got to looking and smiling, looking up and down. And Paige was like, "Okay, that will do." And he goes, "Well, I'm just being polite." And it was like, "No, you giving creepy vibes. Like, Lily, are you sure? Are you sure?" "Okay, as long as you're sure." So So Paige sees Campbell, not knowing that he belongs to Dorothy. And she goes, "Oh, I'm gonna give me some Campbell because Paige is always on the prowl. Paige gonna always find her man in the situation." So Paige goes over to Campbell and was like, "What brings you here?" And he goes, "Well, I'm kind of with." And that's when Dorothy walks up and she goes, "Hey, y'all." She goes, "I see y'all at Campbell." And Lily and Kate walk over and you're like, "Yeah, Paige was just hitting on them." And Paige was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even know." And, Dorothy introduces all of them and said that they go way back. And, he excuses himself to go get them a drink. And they were like, "Well, Dorothy, girl, give us the deeds. Like, when this happened?" Like, they were trying to, get in her business. And it was kind of funny. That's what friends do. So, as the creepy Max guy was giving his speech, they Kate took it upon herself to ask Lily and Dorothy, to tell her what, she already told Paige what she had found in her apartment. She goes, it was like a Cupid mask. And then Dorothy brings up, like at that Halloween dance in the 6th grade with Jeremy Milton in that situation. And it was funny because Lily and Paige were having a conversation where when they were trying to figure out who sent their box of chocolates in the card, it was signed Jeremy. They were talking about Jeremy Milton as well, and they were talking about how weird it was. So now it's time for the girls and the guys to separate. So the girls go in one corner, the men go in another, and the girls were looking. Dorothy was like, "The fuck is wrong with this guy?" And Lily was trying to excuse it, and she goes, "Dorothy," and she goes, "Sorry." And so they were looking around, and, it starts to get to a point where Max and Lily, found each other in the midst of all this mess. And they start, making out. And then his little assistant, who kept interrupting them the entire night, comes over and she starts unbuttoning her shirt as if she's supposed to get in on the action. And we're trying to be like, "What's going on here?" And Lily kind of had that same reaction. "Oh, damn, what the hell is she doing here?" And he goes, "Oh, that's just Amy." And she goes, "What you mean that's just Amy? Tell her to go." And he goes, "Oh, I invited her here." And she goes, "Oh, hell no." She goes, "I got a plane to catch. Ain't nobody got time to be fooling around with you." And he goes, "Well, what's wrong?" And so she goes, "You end up being exactly what I thought you were. You just a sleaze." But I think she called the sleaze ball. She walks out. She gets lost and ends up getting locked in this room of TVs, and it kind of frightens her. The killer comes in with a bow and arrow, and I swear this is not one of the ways that I want to be taken out. If I'm going to be taken out on this earth, is by a bow and arrow. So the killer hits her a few times with the bow and arrow. And then finally, the third one was the charm because she ends up knocking her down and she ends up falling through floors and floors and floors of this building and ends up in the trash. And Lily is dead. It's 2 down, 3 more to go. So they go back into the party, and we see Campbell arguing with this lady who we know later on in the movie, her name is Ruthie. Ruthie was saying, "You ain't nothing but a leech. I want my money. I don't care about none of that bullshit you talking about. I want my stuff." So the girls walk over, especially Dorothy. Dorothy's like, "What's going on here?" And and Ruthie goes, "Well, if it ain't the latest victim." She goes, "I'm sorry, but who are you?" And then she extends her hand up for a handshake. And she goes, "That ain't none of your business." And he goes, "She's nobody." Kimball's like, "She's nobody. She was like, "Yeah, I'm a nobody who, still waiting on return on her investment. What is that called? BleedMeDry.com." And he goes, "Okay, come on, Dorothy, time to go." And so Kate, her boyfriend, which is David Boreanaz, I cannot think of his name throughout this movie, is going to kill me. I'm telling you, I'm going to get it at the end. So it comes to a point where, they start talking about what happened, and, he's really just trying to get her back. It wasn't really much of nothing. It was just kind of one of those situations where they were just trying to talk, and she's kind of feeling him again, after now that he didn't give up his drinking. So the next day happens, the detective who's on the case was like, "I'm trying to just figure this out, now that there's been some times," and Lily's missing from the table and they all think that she's out of town. So that's what they tell him. So he goes, "Well, the parents just got a card and it was really weird. So we took it as evidence." And so Dorothy opens the card and, it says, "With sympathy, too bad, so sad." And it says Jeremy Milton. And she goes, "Wow, it's Jeremy Milton." And even Paige was like, "Damn, Jeremy Milton, really?" And she goes, "That's who my card came from. It was signed JM." And then Paige makes the correlation, "So was mine. Mine was also signed JM as well, and our chocolates." And goes, so you both got threatening cars? And I wouldn't have called it threatening. And that's what kind of made me kind of look at him and go, that's not a threat. It was just a card that had a joke. It's a prank. Some men are stupid and immature, especially in that time. If we're talking about the 90s and 2000s, men did stupid shit like that. So I wouldn't have took it serious either. But he was like, well, I'm looking for Jason Marquette. Y'all got something that's James. Y'all don't find that coincidence? Well, it's like, well, one, I don't know a Jason Marquette. So why would I think anything of saying that to you when I don't even know who you're looking for? So it then comes to a point in the conversation to where Dorothy explains what happens in the beginning of the movie. He attacked me at a dance. Well, he didn't really attack you, Dorothy. You put in 20 on 10. Y'all were making out, and then you got caught by the other dudes that were in that gym, and that's what happened. So yeah, it really was Dorothy's fault. If we really want to put blame on something, Dorothy did have a lot to do with it. And she said it once the meeting was over and she was telling Kate and Paige, she goes, look, I know I'm next. I know he's after me. Now, they were like, well, why would he be after you if he attacked you already? And that's when Paige kind of was like, did he really attack you? And Dorothy goes, no, I just said that he did because we were making out. Those guys were looking and she couldn't bear it. So what does she do? She says he attacked her. And they were telling her not to worry about it. It is what it is. You know, just let it go. So she does. And what ends up happening is that Kate tries to find Jeremy Milton on Google. Oh, I guess what would have been Google back in that time. It wasn't Google. It was just kind of like a people search. She couldn't find any information on Jeremy Milton. And so, you know, she kind of goes to an extent to where, you know, she goes home and she sees David at her door. I'm going to call him David because I can't think of his name. And she goes, what happened? But before David goes to her, you know, before she gets to David, we see a dialogue of the creepy neighbor putting on her drawers in her apartment, and the killer ends up killing him. And David just happened to be, you know, downstairs. So, you know, from that point, they're just like, you know, she goes, I owe you tender love and care. But before Kate goes upstairs to her apartment and everything, the cop calls him back over again and says, look, I found pictures of Jeremy Milton and the last whereabouts. He's been in an insane asylum. He's been in a juvenile hall. He's just been a troubled kid. They're trying to figure it out too. And she goes, do you have any more recent pictures of him? And he goes, no. So then after, you know, they started talking about who you're dating. She goes, I'm dating David. He ain't nobody. You know, he's not Jeremy Milton. Paige isn't dating anybody, and that's the answer he wanted to hear, that Paige was not dating anybody. And then Dorothy mentions Campbell, but she doesn't know Campbell's last name. And they were all looking like, well, I thought Campbell was staying with you. She goes, well, he is. His roommate didn't pay the rent. And so she was like, okay, well then what's going on here? Because you don't even know him then. And so the cop was asked, well, that's a fair question. What is his last name? And Dorothy goes, this is bullshit. I don't have to answer these questions. I'll see you guys later. And Paige was like, well, that went well. And Kate got her purse and she's like, I'm going to leave too. And then he goes, well, Paige, I don't want you to leave yet. And before Kate could even get out the door good, he was closing the door literally on her. And she's like, well, wait, are you okay, babe? She goes, well, I'll call you if I'm not arrested. So moments go by, Kate gets home. I guess Paige beat her there because when she, you know, opens the bathroom door and she has her iron, Paige literally pops up. She goes, what the hell are you doing here? And she goes, Detective Vaughn is an asshole, basically. She goes, what happened? She goes, after you left, he put his hand on my thigh. And she goes, well, did you ask him? And then she goes, no. And then Dorothy calls and she goes, hey, Dorothy, Paige is here too. So Dorothy's explaining what's going on. And before we get into what's going on with Dorothy, let's say what happened with Dorothy and Campbell. So Dorothy and Campbell tried to have sex apparently, and it didn't happen. At least that's what it looked like to me. It looked like she got disappointed. And so she went to go take a shower. And then Campbell surprises her because she surprised him with the Rolex. It was very nice. I ain't gonna lie. I said, ooh, Dorothy, you didn't spend some of daddy money on him. And so he didn't get her anything for Valentine's Day. Couldn't give her sex, couldn't give her nothing. So he gives her this necklace of Cupid. And it was like, really? Okay. Okay. It was cute. It was cute. But it was like a Rolex versus a little, you know, never mind. That means nothing. So Kimball was over there doing some fraudulent stuff by the pool. And Dorothy tells him, can you relight the pilot light down in the basement? And then all of a sudden, the killer is down at the basement. After he lights the pilot light, it ends up killing him in the back with an axe. Dorothy, I'm watching you too, because you kind of giving me killer vibes as well. But so we move back over to Kate's apartment and we listen to the phone call. She tells them that, Campbell got questioned and, I don't want to get dumped from a party. And they were like, well, just make it up to the guy. And that's what the advice they give her. And overall, it was just kind of like, Dorothy is clueless when it comes to men. She obviously has not dated, like Paige has, at least, I'm going to say that. So now they kind of are getting phone calls from the detective saying he picked up Marquette. They're going to question him. And we know that Dorothy is having this party the same night. So they all get ready and go to this party that Dorothy is having. Now, keep in mind, I said that Kimball is dead and Dorothy apparently does not know about it. So Paige was already there. I guess she didn't go and see Dorothy because she didn't want to deal with that, which I couldn't blame her. So Kate runs in and she goes, hey, and she goes, hi. She goes, what are you doing? She goes, any hot guys in here? She goes, well, I'm playing phone tag with Brian back from the speed dating. So Brian's going to show back up later on in the movie. She goes, okay, well, I'm going to go find Dorothy. So she goes into the kitchen. Dorothy over there finishing up some wings. The wings did look good though, Dorothy. I ain't gonna lie, girl, you did this. And she was drinking champagne, getting drunk. I guess Dorothy said, screw it, he left me. And Kate walks in and she goes, no, girl, that's not what it is. He can still show up, like it's still early. And Kate's like, it's 11. I said, Kate, that's not early. Like, what's going on here? Like, he done left that girl or he's dead. Like, why are we not putting two and two together? So David walks into the room. David Browns walks into the room, whatever his character's name is. And, she kind of makes snarky comments and then she just excuses herself out of the room because she just can't take it. She can't take Kate being in the relationship, and then Paige with this guy, she ends up walking in on that, and Paige ends up taking him upstairs into her room, and Dorothy is just kind of getting pissed off. Dorothy is like, ugh, whatever. So we panel over to Paige, and he's like, I want to show you something. So he pulls down his pants, and he just smiles. And she looked good. She gave him this look. She looked disappointed. She looked like, that's it? Like, that's the look she gave him. So it was funny to see her give him that look. And he goes, wax it. And I said, oh, we bold. Are you fucking kidding me? You talking about some wax? And she said, okay. So she ties him up to the bed and then she literally grabs a candle and pours it right on his damn nuts. And I said, yeah, she waxed it all right for your ass. Look at that. That was just rude. It was like, oh yeah. And so she walks out the party. And she walks downstairs to Kate, and she tells Kate, this party sucks now. And right when they look, Kate spots the Ruthie woman that Campbell got into it with it earlier in the movie. And she goes, oh no, this is a private Paige, especially Paige was about that life. Paige was like, this is a private party. And she goes, and Ruthie goes, get your little paws off me. And Dorothy's like, what is she doing here? And Kate goes, nothing, Dorothy, she was just leaving. And one thing I'm going to say about Kate and Paige, they had Dorothy's back. Even if it didn't make sense, even if they didn't know what was going on, Dorothy couldn't say, even if she had issues with them, that they weren't good friends to her, because they definitely were. And I'm sure Lily was, and maybe Shelley could have been. So Dorothy kind of made me mad at a certain point in this movie, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. But moving forward, Ruthie was like, oh, that's my necklace. Hold on. That's my necklace that Dorothy was wearing. Remember the Cupid necklace that Kimball had gave her? She was like, that's my necklace. Like, And she goes, Kimball gave me this necklace. And she goes, and what are you supposed to be? His Valentine? She goes, that shit belongs to me along with all the rest of my stuff he stole. And Dorothy goes, well, he loves me. And Ruthie said, he loves your trust fund. And then she looks her up and down, trust me. And Paige's like, okay, time to go. So they literally rush her out. And, Dorothy felt embarrassed. So she walks away. And Paige goes, now this party really sucks. And so she gets a bottle of champagne and she goes down to the jacuzzi. Now, at this point, Kate got a phone call that they had to let Jason Marquette go. He might be coming to this party, so they said make sure you stay with the group. Dorothy's trying to figure out what's going on. Now, there's a few things happening all at once. So the next thing that happened is, remember, David's character was an alcoholic. So he kept drinking champagne, and Kate was like, well, which one of the 12 steps is this? And he goes, I've been looking all over for you. And this was the best read of the whole movie. And she goes, and I wasn't at the bottom of the bottle. And she walks off. And, his name was Jeremy. Okay, so this is where, but before I get there, let's go to Paige Death, because Paige Death was fucked up. So Paige is in a jacuzzi, kind of. No, actually, I want to go to Ruthie's desk. Let me go to Ruthie's desk, and then we're going to go to Paige's desk next. So Ruthie is rumbling through shit, looking all up and through, Kimball's stuff. She finds the Rolex that Dorothy had gave him, and she puts it on her arm. And then people were making noises throughout the house. People were just being nosy and running all up and through Dorothy's house. So she looks out, and she tries to sneak her way out, but she ends up going to the basement area where the pool, the jacuzzi, the wine cellar, this big gargantuous house. It was so beautiful. So what she ends up doing is, I know they are not mowing this lawn right now, right when I'm about to do this video. Damn it, I hope y'all don't hear this. I'm gonna listen to this later and see if y'all hear it. But anyways, back to this. So Ruthie ends up seeing the Cupid mask killer, and she goes, oh, what the hell are you supposed to be? So she ends up hitting him with the Q stick, and then she runs and hides into the sauna. And I said, you big dumbass, why would you go into a sauna of all places? I would have ran into that jacuzzi room with Paige and be like, girl, let's go and get your shit. Come on. I know you don't like me, but come on. But he ends up getting Ruthie, and he ends up killing her. He ends up throwing her through a glass shower and then puts her neck and kills her through the neck area. And I said, ooh, her death was fucked up. But Paige's death, let me tell you, Paige's death was even more fucked up. So Paige was in the jacuzzi, minding her business, drinking her champagne, and she sees a rose at the end of the thing after hearing a noise. So she goes, who's in here? And she's thinking it's Brian, and it's not Brian. So literally the killer sneaks up behind her and throws her head first into the jacuzzi, and she bumps her head, and then he puts the plexiglass on top of it. So now she can't get out, and she barely has air to breathe. So he takes this power drill and starts drilling holes, trying to drill her initially. So Paige is going, getting air out of each hole, and he drills quite a few holes in here. And then he drills holes and ends up getting her in the arm. And then once he gets her in the arm, she kind of goes underwater because she's in pain, and he throws the drill in there and begins electrocuting herself. Now I said, damn, that is messed up. So the power in the power drill going into water short circuits the entire house. So the house clears up, and oh, his name wasn't Jeremy. God damn it, Jeremy was Jeremy. I didn't say the boy's name was Jeremy. David's character, damn it. So David's character. So this is where Dorothy pissed me off. So she goes, it could be him, Who? And she goes, Jeremy Milton, could be David. And she goes, no, I know him. Like, it couldn't have been him. And she goes, I don't know, with some plastic surgery. Why? Adam was his name. Why couldn't Jeremy Milton be Adam Carr? And she goes, okay, fine. By the same logic, why couldn't Jeremy Milton be Campbell? And she goes, you better take that back. She goes, I'm sorry, Dorothy, but I know him compared to you not knowing Campbell. So what the hell are we talking about here? And she goes, you just can't help it, can't you? She goes, can't help what? She goes, that I found someone who's just as good looking as your boyfriend. And then I said, now, Dorothy, what you're not going to do is sit here and play these women as if they really look down upon you when they only show that they supported you, especially when Ruthie called your man all kind of shit. They was willing to go to blows with her. So I didn't like what you did in this moment, Dorothy. You kind of pissed me off because she kept saying how Kate was the popular one, Paige was the sexy one, Shelly was the brainy one, and Lily was the funny one, and she was just the big fat one. And it was like, but that wasn't their fault. And regardless of how it looked, y'all are friends. And they showed you they were friends. They include you in everything. They didn't look down upon you. Like they were like that's what made me mad about Dorothy. Dorothy was kind of, I think she was really deflecting. I think this is how she feels, and she wanted to project that onto how they would feel about her, and they don't feel that way about her. Even Kate looked so confused. She goes, "What's going on?" So Dorothy walks away. I don't even. Dorothy strutted out that room. She strutted. I mean, was switching from left to right so hard. I said, "Well, damn, Dorothy." So Kate tries to call the detective because she hasn't heard from him. He was supposed to be there by now. The detective never shows. She goes out to the pond and his head pops up out of nowhere, scares the shit out of her. So she's yelling throughout the house. And then Adam, who is David's character, now that I know remember his name in the movie, David pops up and he goes, "Hey, Kate," all creepy. And she goes, "Where's Dorothy?" And he goes, "Well, Dorothy's a big girl. She could take care of her girl." She goes, "What do you mean by that?" And so she starts running from him. She finds Paige and realizes that Paige is dead, finds Ruthie and realizes that Ruthie is dead. And so she kind of goes to the same area where the office is and she gets the gun. And so when she pulls the gun out, the man comes down the stairs and she says, "Stay back and stay back." And so one time she runs up the stairs and then the killer bumps into her and she drops the gun. And when she wakes up, the killer jumps up because he didn't cause a second wind. Adam, who is David's character, shoots him. And then when they pull the mask off, they realize that it was Dorothy who was the killer. Kate kind of is shocked. She goes, "No, it can't be Dorothy. There's no freaking way. She was happy, no freaking way." And so he's trying to make sense that maybe she really wasn't as happy as she projected herself to be. Like maybe there was something deep down that she has not dealt with, which I do agree with and I do believe. But let's kind of take a moment to look at the synopsis here a little bit. Who really was the killer? Because at the end of this movie, we realized that Adam had the nosebleed just like Jeremy. But he ended up getting who he wanted. So it was like, was he really the killer or was it really Dorothy? We don't know. We have questions because they left this big cliffhanger of who it could have been. And to me, the same way it could have been Adam, it also could have been Dorothy because Dorothy could have easily killed Kimball. Dorothy could have easily killed Lily. Dorothy could have easily killed Paige the same way Adam could have easily killed them. So it's kind of like, I don't know who the killer could have been. So if y'all have an idea, I would love to read your comments on who you think, if you've seen the movie Valentine, if you really think who the killer would be, if you think it's somebody else other than Dorothy or other than Adam. I honestly think it was Dorothy. And I'm going to say that Dorothy had more reason out of jealousy to kill them than Jeremy Milton playing Adam Carr would have, getting the one he actually wanted. So I'm kind of leaning more towards Dorothy. It could have been Adam for all I know, but I don't know. I just feel like Dorothy had more reasoning to kill them than Adam would have. So I don't know. Post your thoughts. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I definitely want to interact with you guys. And until the next video, you guys, which I'm super excited about because I will be inserting myself into that one. So make sure you're on the lookout. Peace out, guys. Bye.